Hey, how's it going, guys? Ancient Rune here, back with another Borderlands 3 build video, and today I'll be going over my ultimate Zane build. Most of my builds focus on one specific thing, while this build is focused on multiple things, but the main goal is doing the most damage while clearing content fast. If you want those more specific builds, I will have that playlist of my Zane builds linked in the description below. Now, kind of lucky for Zane, his skill trees for top builds always end up being the same, blue and purple with some red for clone support in some way. So you can kind of just do standard gun stuff as well if you want to, so I have some gear for that. This is mainly focused on stuff like Hustler Racer Tech and Armin Flint Dots. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. The save file will be found in my Discord, which is linked down below, and I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so the main thing with this build is going to be Hustler Racer. And one of the strongest clearing guns with Hustler Racer is the Creamer. And I have a very specific Creamer here. It is one with mag size parts here instead of damage. It's +2 mag size, or 2 parts with +1 mag size, no ×2, and no projectile speed on the gun. This means you have more mag size to use an absorb shield like the Infernal Wish. The Infernal Wish with absorb is the best absorb shield with self damage on Zane, and so the projectile speed being removed means it's more likely for when the Creamer splits its projectiles, that splash damage will also hit you, which will mean you'll be gaining ammo back while that's happening, so you can just constantly shoot and never reload. Now, the main thing you're going to want with this is the splash damage anointment, as this will double dip in Eraser, since Eraser is a double dipping skill, and we'll go over that when we go over the skill tree. Now, the main bossing weapon, and this is mainly for like the top raid bosses like True Trials, you want a Globetrotter, and you want it with ×6, because ×3 versus ×6 there is no damage penalty, and so ×6 is just better, more chances of proccing Hustler for Eraser, and not having lower base damage. So I have these in every element. You mainly want to element match. You can mob with this and use like an absorb shield. You could use an absorb Old God. You could use an absorb Infernal Wish, though since it's a ×6, I would not suggest doing that. I don't know if I would use a Revolter. I don't know how strong the dot on a Globetrotter would be with the Revolter dot. But you also have the Transformer, which I don't have on here, but that's really only for shock. You can use it with a Cryo one though, but this is mainly for bossing. And then here I have a Recursion. Recursion is really weird with its projectiles and Eraser, so using this with Armin Flint Dot is insane. I have one with ASC Splash, and I also have one with the Ellie Crit Anointment. Because Armin Flint is a double dipping dot, it is just crazy good. If you've used the Alchemical Agent skill in Wonderlands, which is about melee, it's very similar to that, but for guns. So it takes the base damage of your shot, so it goes through the base damage of your gun, goes through the formula. If it's splash gun, it gets the splash bonus, and then it applies the dot damage formula. And then what you could also do is you could explode that dot, consuming it and not having a duration, and explode into 500% increase, also getting the damage formula again. Now, what I've found for the most part is that using AC Splash and then letting the dot keep going is generally better than the Ellie Crit Anointment. That doesn't make any of them bad. For mobbing, I like to use Ellie Crit, but for bossing, I like to use ASC Splash, but both are really good, and it also just kind of depends on how high health of boss you have. Now, you really, for bossing, want to element match, but for mobbing, I really like to use Radiation with something like a Old God, because it just gets a double dip of radiation damage. But you could also use a Wish for an extra projectile. Now, I do have a ×2 instead of a ×1 for consistency's sake over better damage. A ×1 is easily better damage, and really it's probably better if you're using like a wish plus playing dirty, because it's 3 versus 4 projectiles, and that's not that big of a difference for a higher base damage for double dipping skills, and it just consumes less ammo. And then Major Kong is like the strongest standard one-shot gun, and you can do standard one-shot stuff on this, though I don't really focus on it because Hustler Racer ends up just being better one-shot stuff than a standard one-shot gun build. But I still have ASC Splash on here. It still goes through erasers, so it's an amazing eraser gun. You can basically use any eraser gun. This skill tree ends up being like max damage Hustler Eraser. My Hustler Eraser build goes Clone Capstone because for the casual player, it's better to get this for clone clear speed. But going this way is a lot better with clones still stacking Eraser stacks or Hustler stacks. So you could use any eraser gun, but I'm just going over some of the top ones. Now for dots, because we go Arm and Flint, Recursion, I also love using mobbing. Herald is like my favorite mobbing gun for dots. I usually use an LE crit one, just for better mobbing and rad explosions. I use a radiation because of the rad explosions. Now you could use a red suit with this and then go like elemental projector and just shoot yourself in the foot, and then have a double dipping radiation damage bonus, which is insane, which I don't have set up on this build specifically, but stuff that I have done, and it is crazy. And then I have a corrosive one because a lot of bosses have corrosive health, but bossing again is just element matching. And then you can also just do the standard gun stuff, with Herald being one of the best mobbing guns in the game, so that's really good. And then other guns I have is like the crit or the flipper. I also have launchers like the Kick Charger and the Plague Bearer available. You could use Plague Bearer plus Absorb. And then you have the Free Radical here. You could use an ASC Splash Free Radical and it'll do great. You can use any good gun on here because you have the standard stuff like Violent Momentum going with your standard Blue Tree spec, and then your standard getting good gun skills in Purple Tree and Green Tree. I love doing Green Tree. You see me use Green Tree, but it's bad. It doesn't boost your damage. So overall, just getting stuff in here for clone survivability is better. But with the Free Radical, there's just a URAD one for survivability. If you go down, use this, get back up. But your builds is usually high damage enough to where you don't need a fight for your life weapon, especially since you have Clone as backup. And then for the shields, I go more in depth. I've mentioned the Inferno Wish. It adds a projectile, which is great for our chance of critting or just stacking Hustler, critting via Hustler. It's just really good shield, and with Absorb, it's the best one. It only has 2 Absorb parts, but that extra projectile is so much better than having any triple Absorb shield. It's nuts. Now this could change like depending on builds, but for the gear I'm using, this Absorb shield's gonna be the best thing here. And then you'll want to use ASE, apply Terror on this Inferno Wish, because on the grenade we're using Terror damage and fire rate. Now some other shields here I have. Old Gods here is if you're doing anything that involves double dipping, which for the most part we are with Arm and Flint and Eraser. This is stuff that you don't really care as much about the extra Inferno Wish projectile, like the Globetrotter, sometimes the Recursion. We got Yellow Cake here. There's plenty of other guns where an Old God could be better. Same with the Red Suit. I do also have an Amp Inferno Wish, and this is more damage using the Amp one. And for like one-shot stuff, you definitely want to use Amp. But I don't use it in this case because it's faster clear speed to use an Absorb instead of Amp. And then I also have some Revolters here if I want to go the standard gun route. I also have one with Terror Amber Region to replicate my Zane Prime build, using Infiltrator with Violent Momentum. breaking shield to have some sort of ammo regen, and then having a terror apply on this, which works really nice, and I just like it because then I can use AAC splash and not have to use digiclone ammo regen, because AAC splash is busted. Then for the grenade, I like to use Mesmer because clone can throw it to have some aggro relief, but that really helps clone stay alive as well, and you want to make sure you have it low level so clone doesn't accidentally blow itself up here. But usually the practical amount from getting like a low level character is around level 33 to level 40, mayhem 8 to get guaranteed anoint, and clone usually doesn't blow itself up. Another amazing grenade here is the It's Piss. This is gear buff that will double dip. Now, something I don't have equipped on this build is the Zepsis Eruption, which is also really good for min-maxing bossing one-shots. Not exactly needed, but if you want to deal the most damage possible, swapping from an Eruption back will be really good. I don't have Cold War for the swap speed on this build, so it is kind of hard to use. It is additive with that, so you can use it if you want to, but I don't here. But the anointment you want is the terror damage and fire rate. This is important because we have it nowhere else on this build. The only other place you could get it is from if you end up using a victory rush, which isn't always active. It requires a badass, and not all content has a badass available, or from Kaka Combo, which needs you to be constantly shooting, have a fast fire rate, which not all guns do, so it's not always really good. Even though Zane has a lot of fire rate boost, it doesn't mean that the gun will have that much fire rate. So having this, it goes up to 35%, is insane because that double dips, potentially triples and quadruple dips. Now the main star of the show is going to be the Hustler. Hustler with splash radius is the minimum you need. Top rolls do not matter ever at all. They can be nice, but they are never needed. So what we do here is we get splash damage and weapon type. Well, I prioritize weapon type over splash damage, and since we're mainly using launchers, I'm using heavy weapon damage, but I also have a shotgun damage here and a pistol damage here for doing eraser stuff. I like to use Hustler when doing dot stuff, so pistol damage good for the Herald, with the shotgun damage being for the recursion. Recursion just does normal eraser stuff as well, which is really nice. But splash damage is the minimum because you're going to always have it on your artifact, and a lot of times have it on your anointment for your gun. So a little less important, and artifact or class mod farming sucks. Now, some other stuff we have here for normal gun build, you've got antifreeze, and you've also got the executor, and then we also have the infiltrator for my Zane Prime version, as I went with the breaking revolter to have terror, and break revolter and have AFC splash. But this is the main star of the show, and the other stuff is kind of just extra. These other class mods are just kind of like, oh, that's neat. And then the artifact is any artifact, honestly, with area of effect damage in the second or third slot, or in company man's case, any slot, because it counts as a secondary passive. And secondary passive area of effect damage also gets area radius, which is the same as splash. Splash damage is area of effect damage, splash radius is area of effect radius. So it's a must-have in this as well. Double dips through eraser. So this is a must-have. And then with Toboggan, you'll either want to get primary with magazine size, heavy weapon damage, or weapon type damage, or elemental damage. One of those three. They cannot roll on the same artifact because of how Toboggan goes. And then either area of effect or action skill cooldown rate and movement speed. Some other stuff we have here is a cutburst launchpad for gaining back ammo if you need to, just a general good utility item. Elemental projector if I'm using something like the Globetrotter and just shooting around. Most likely with the Globetrotter I will hurt myself, but because it's cryo plus duct tape mod, I'm immune, and so elemental projector will apply a cryo dot, so I'm double dipping that elemental damage, which is huge. Got another toboggan here, and I've got company mans for those standard gun builds that I like to do on this build as well. And then for the skill tree here, we have standard blue tree. We go violent momentum plus violent speed. Violent momentum has hundreds of gun damage here. It is insane. With this build, you'll definitely have plenty of gun damage on this build. Salvation, only ever need 1 point. Clone bullets will also proc it, which is great, but you're dealing hundreds of millions to billions of damage, which is 3% is a lot more than 45,000 health, so you'll be plenty good with 1%. We have drone delivery, just if you want to throw on drone. This is mainly for those standard gun builds where, well, clone doesn't matter as much, but still really nice. But I also really like getting bad dose sometimes, because that movement speed and fire rate is fun. But not for Hustler, Racer, or Arm and Flint stuff. Cool Hand for reload speed. Even though with some builds we're doing absorb tech, you sometimes still do reload. Better to have reload speed than none. 5 in violent violence. Not every gun will benefit from this, like Creamer launcher stuff won't care as much, where some other guns will. So this is kind of just thrown in there for extra stuff. We don't go Cold War because of the self-cryoing it can do, and when we're doing absorb stuff, it sucks. It can be really good damage, and some speedrun stuff uses it. It's for like maximum damage you would use Cold War, but we don't go here because I'd rather have more fire rate or more reload speed. Then we have 2 points into playing dirty. 2 points is like the average I'll go. We are keeping this active all the time. Playing dirty is kind of weird. It's really like a 28% chance to activate this skill, and the skill is the next 5 shots are guaranteed to have an extra projectile. So we have it at 28%, but we're killing mobs everywhere. We're also activating our kill skills with Seeing Red plus Mantis, so you are never running out of this for the guns that you need this for. Not every gun will benefit well. Like the Herald, it says ×3, but it shoots 7 projectiles, doesn't matter. Globetrotter, 6 projectiles, doesn't matter. Recursion and Creamer, you'll like this, and you don't shoot as fast. Technically, Terminal Crit would like it, but doesn't need it. Flipper does nothing, goes up to 9 projectiles. Yellow Cake can be nice, and you keep it. Same with Kick Charger, you'll keep it. Plague Bear, you'll keep it. Sandhawks are just kind of here. So it doesn't need that many points. Some builds like more, some builds can even do 1 point, but we still do kind of spam it a bit, spam our guns a bit, even on our slower shooting builds. So having 2 points is just kind of comfy. And then we have Good Misfortune here. We only need 1 point to keep our clone or our drone up, so you don't need to take anything else out, and 1 point is good to go. We go Death Flawless Close here to boost all our kill skills. We have a lot. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kill skills. You may have noticed I went over Violent Momentum. Violent Momentum actually gets kill skill bonus boost, so it is huge to have this. Some builds don't need it, like, because gun damage doesn't double dip, so it's less of a must-have bonus, but it still does help. So on this build, we get it because we don't need to go something like Clone Capstone. And then the purple tree, the main goal of this build is to get Eraser and Arm and Flint. So we have 5 in Mana Focus. You could go Deja Vu for better reload, but I'd rather have the accuracy and handling for when I need it over the chance to have Deja Vu happen, which like speedrun builds on Zane will take Deja Vu, but I'd rather have it for consistency and a little bit more options here. Then we have Headsman's Hands for the crit damage. Generally with Hustler Racer builds, you're not naturally critting, so you're not getting this. As Hustler is fake crit, this crit damage here is a different kind of crit. So this is nice, but not as good for the main stuff we're doing, but for bossing, you usually just want to aim for the crit spot anyways, if it is available, so you still can hit and benefit from this crit damage. Commitment is mainly here for the action skill cooldown rate. I do appreciate the consistent gun damage, but on a build like this, it is going to be irrelevant. Fugitives is so we can sprint and shoot. This is ginormous for momentum, just increased movement speed there, and just means clearing better. We have 5 in domino effect. This is to get the fire rate and reload speed. If clone crits, it will activate this second stat, which can happen. Clone mainly aims for body shots, but it depends on the enemy and where its crit slot is, so it can proc that, and then your mantis cannon can as well, so you can kind of just aim that if you really need to. But even at the 20% reload speed and 15% fire rate, it's more than enough. Eraser is here. Eraser, I have a build video on Hustler Eraser. I'll link a bunch of videos on stuff that I mentioned in this build. So I'll have lots of information in the description, because if I was to explain everything in depth, this video would be an hour long and no one wants that. But this double dips stuff, it takes your gun damage formula and then applies your generic global boost. So it gets your gun formula, gun damage times V1, V2, debuff, splash, all the basic stuff. Splash if the gun is splash, of course, which is a reason why we use so many splash guns. And then it will go through and then it'll do like the V1, V2, debuff, splash again. And so what's cool is that some of these guns will, if they split, they have a chance to eraser again. Not all guns can eraser multiple times, but this means it goes from a double dip to a triple, potentially quadruple. And with eraser, splash damage, like the splash radius and not a direct hit, will crit. So you have this, so you have the eraser projectile going by an enemy, hits the ground with their huge splash radius of just your gun, your splash radius on your class mod and artifact, why it's so huge, and then will crit, and then create another projectile, and then that can crit and maybe make another projectile. It's not infinite, and it does only so much, and it depends on the gun, but that's one of the reasons this skill is so dumb. And with root, I don't include root here because it is a busted glitch gun and no one wants to burn their eyes with that. This build is blinding enough at times, so yeah, we don't use root. That's boring. That's like a reason this is so good. And then we have sheer will, just for some nice consistent cooldown. This is mainly for digiclone because these stacks after a crit hit do not apply to mantis. This is a bug, which is really unfortunate. And then we have Armin Flint. This is also double dipping like Eraser. It goes your standard gun formula, including splash. And then once you crit, it will apply the status effect formula. What's great is Eraser can crit via Hustler. And that Hustler projectile can apply an Armin Flint dot. So you have that double dip through Eraser to a triple dip with Armin Flint. And then if you get the LA crit anointment, that is a quadruple dip. Now sometimes just letting the dot play out is better than the explosion, but this also depends on the duration of a dot. Like the shock dot is like 3 seconds, so you have that keep in mind. But yeah, it's nuts. I'll link my alchemical agent build as well as the damage formula document. This build is just insane. And then red tree is where we put the rest of the skill points. The goal here is to get Supersonic Man and Old You. Clone, one of the best skills in the game in my opinion, because it can deal insane damage and insane utility. I have a video I'll link about why Clone is technically underrated. Goes over all the survivability stuff, but we go Prey Mutinous here for the mag size increase, I go 4 borrowed time. You could go 5 borrowed time for Donnybrook, doesn't matter. But I go 4 here for the increased action skill duration. Now with multiple activations of Mantis Cannon, this will do multiple stacks. As many Mantis Cannon charges are on cooldown means as many stacks of borrowed time you'll have. And this is the same for Supersonic Man, which makes it crazy because you can have 5 stacks. That's over 100% action skill duration, just doubling your duration. So this 15-second duration, 30 seconds. And then you have Good Misfortune going. Insane. Donnybrook for the nice health regen and gun damage. Health regen can be nice for the clone. Fractal Frags, clone is throwing out grenades, mainly just for utility. Mesmer is used, so clone will throw it at enemies near him, so enemies can't attack him, but will still draw aggro from other enemies, because a big thing with clone is drawing aggro here. And then we have duct tape mod, so we're immune to our splash damage. That's the main reason we're using it here, so you only need 1 point. Quick breather, so if we swap with clone, we will restore half of clone's max health, as well as recharge our shield and clone shield. It doesn't mention clone shield, but it does also recharge clone shield, which helps them a little bit with survivability. A problem though with clone survivability is with Inferno Wish, since it uses a regular like full auto gun but shoots in burst fire. It's kind of hard because this will apply a strong dot, so you won't have as good clone survivability, which is why a lot of times I like to take Boom Enhance. But taking Boom Enhance would mean you're either giving up Arm and Flint or Death Follows Close, which would end up being Death Follows Close given up, but then that just hurts your normal gun stuff if you want to do that, which I'd rather not do here. So we just won't have clone up all the time if we're using something like Infernal Wish, and just in general, since clone will have less duration and health, but still plenty good. OG is best survivability. Insane. Getting free fight for your life, get out of fight for your life card. Press this, you get out of fight for your life and keep going with your life steal. This is super easy. You do deal enough damage to generally get out, but if clone is the only thing around and like there's no enemies around, you can't kill anything, but clone's here to get you right back up. It does take a point out of Supersonic Man, but it doesn't matter. Supersonic Man is just here to boost Violent Momentum, and Violent Momentum is not the damage dealer, it just helps increase the base damage. Now for the action skill, Mantis is purely here for activating our action skill. Mantis can do insane damage, and honestly on this build, you could probably do a solid Mantis damage build on with this skill tree, but it's better to just go Hustler Racer or Dot build. And some enemies just can't be crit with Mantis Cannon because of weird hitboxes, and some enemies just can't be crit, they don't have a crit spot, so that's where Mantis Cannon loses there. So it just can't do some content on its own. But the main thing you want is proliferation for the additional charges. Just means you can activate your action skill more and get more stacks of borrowed time and Supersonic Man. I have Colder Shoulder here. This is just a dump point. You'd really ideally want No Way Out, but if I'm using an elemental gun that isn't cryo and I pull an enemy towards me, that's gonna suck. But the debuff is really good. So for bossing and with especially high health enemies, I recommend taking this and using it on a boss, because that will double dip into Eraser and Arm and Flint. It boosts anything that gets your damage formula. Actually, it's debuff, so it boosts anything. Anything that deals damage, this will boost, which is nuts. And in this build, it's only additive with Armageddon here, which we're not using elements all the time, so you're not getting too many stacks. You'd usually probably just get like 1 stack, and that's it. Maybe with, if I'm using Revolter, 2 stacks. And then we have no green tree here because it's bad. Brain Freeze can be nice because you can use, I don't have it on here, but you can use an Icebreaker artifact for that V2 damage that will double dip. Mainly I use it for like Arm and Flint, less so Eraser, because enemies are dead before you can freeze them. That's where getting brain freeze on this class mod can be nice, but that's it. And then there's nothing really special, any enabling or disabling ever on this build, which is nice. And I doubt I have it now, but you could go speed demon on this build. Technically, using mayhem modifiers that spawn stuff that have hitboxes is really good for Hussar Eraser, because that gives it a chance to either stack crit chance or crit to create another projectile, which I use on a speedrun. I hope you guys enjoyed the build video. This build does require some knowledge of Zane, and if you don't know, check the description. I will have tons of links to my builds and other resources to help you learn so this video makes more sense. It may take more work, but putting that effort to learn makes the result in your damage so much better, and you really know how this build works. If you have any questions, because this is very complicated and I may have missed some stuff, please comment. Please ask me questions. I am always open to answering questions. This is not just a one and done thing. I will answer them. You can also join my Discord and ask questions there. Both places are really good. Sometimes Discord can be better, but either works. Now, Zane has incredible power and clear speed, making him one of the most powerful vault hunters in the franchise, really only being challenged with bows because of short fuse and minesweeper. Using clone capstone can be a crazy thing, but once you're experienced in the game and have a powerful build, clone capstone isn't needed because you can just kill enemies before clone can. This doesn't make clone bad, just redundant. Again, you can find the save file in my Discord, which is linked down below, as well as my other socials. If you haven't, I would really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace!